Amelia Ward crouched beside the charred roots of a fallen tree, her gloved fingers hovering over a faint glimmer in the dirt. At first, she thought it was shattered equipment or scorched debris from a recent electrical storm, but then it twitched. Barely. She leaned closer, scanning the movement again, and saw it, a small creature, maybe the size of a house cat, pressed flat into the soil. Its body was covered in thin translucent fur or maybe skin, pulsing faintly with soft, irregular hues of blue and violet, like a heartbeat slowed by fear. Her visor display lit up with warnings: unknown biological presence, quarantine protocols in effect, potential contamination risk. She dismissed them all with a single eye flick. Whatever it was hurt. Badly. She removed one glove and reached out slowly. The creature hissed, a weak sound, less aggressive than desperate. One of its limbs was bent at a wrong angle. Burns lined its side, and she could see that something metallic was partially embedded in its shoulder, shrapnel from something bigger. "It's okay," she murmured, voice low and even. "I'm here to help." It didn't understand the words, but tone, rhythm, and intent traveled farther than language. It stopped resisting. She pulled out a field wrap, gently scooped it up, and secured it against her chest. The heartbeat was erratic beneath the wrap. She could feel it through the fabric, fluttering like a trapped bird. Back at the mobile clinic, the AI's voice pulsed through the cabin. "Unknown species. Violation of standard alien contact protocol. Recommend immediate quarantine and notification of Central Command." "I know," she muttered, setting the creature down on the scanner bed. "Just give me vitals." The AI hesitated, a half-second of silence she had learned to interpret as machine judgment. Then data streamed across the display. 4-lobed heart. Oxygen-based respiration. High cellular regeneration potential. That explained why it was still alive. She sterilized the tools and began working. The creature didn't move much. Every now and then it let out a sound, somewhere between a whimper and a call, eyes wide and unblinking. When she removed the shrapnel, it spasmed, but she kept one hand gently pressing its side. Human touch, calibrated not for strength but reassurance. Hours passed. The lights dimmed. She worked through 2 hydration packs and a protein bar. The AI reminded her twice about curfews and command updates. She ignored both. A storm rattled the exterior shielding, dust sweeping across the horizon like it wanted to erase every trace of what happened out there. She finished suturing the final wound and secured a nutrient feed. As soon as it was stable, the colors along its body shifted. Not randomly, but in a specific pulse, blue, then green, then a soft blush pink. She didn't know what it meant, but it felt like something close to thanks. She sat back, finally letting herself breathe. It had been years since she'd broken protocol this severely. Last time was back on Earth, during the Jakarta evacuation. A bomb had dropped 2 blocks from the field hospital. The dogs had scattered in every direction, smoke thick and suffocating. But one had limped into the rubble, howling, looking for its handler. She'd found it half buried, ribs cracked, a shredded flank. No one else would help it. "It's not human," they'd said. She didn't care. That dog died 2 weeks later. She shook off the memory, eyes back on the alien pup. Not this time. This one wasn't dying. Not on her watch. The next morning, she awoke to a soft thump. The pup had dragged itself 2 feet toward her cot, collapsed halfway, and passed out again. She carried it back gently, its glowing skin dim but warm. Word spread quickly. Other medics noticed. A few raised eyebrows. One filed a quiet complaint. Didn't matter. She logged everything. Blood work. Healing rates. Biocompatibility. Still no idea what species it belonged to. No matching DNA in the central database. She marked it as unclassified juvenile entity, temporarily under care. Her superior messaged her twice that day. Quarantine breach. Unauthorized biological intervention. She answered with one line. Vital signs stabilizing. Life form is sentient capable. awaiting further data before reporting to Bioethics Committee. It wasn't a lie. Not completely. By day 3, the pup began mimicking sound patterns. Not speech, but intonation, tiny clicks and chirps in the rhythm of her voice. It tilted its head when she spoke, blinked in sync with her sentences. It leaned into her hand when she ran fingers across the soft membrane behind its ears, or what passed for ears. She found herself speaking to it constantly. Not because she expected understanding, but because silence around it felt wrong. It wasn't just surviving, it was connecting. She knew the calm wouldn't last. Something this unusual, this important, never stayed hidden for long. But for now, it was just a nurse, a broken pup, and a growing bond stronger than any regulation. And outside, the stars were beginning to shift. The clinic lights hummed faintly as Amelia adjusted the micro-bandage over the pup's forelimb. The fracture had begun to set, surprisingly fast for a bone structure she couldn't fully identify. Its regeneration rate was unlike any terrestrial organism she treated. Each day, cell density increased by a measurable percentage, tissue knitting together in strange, lattice-like layers. Still, recovery was fragile, and she treated it as such. The pup now responded consistently to her presence. When she entered, it chirped faintly, a rising tone accompanied by a brief shimmer along its bioluminescent skin. These signals had become predictable: blue for calm, green for curiosity, pale amber when it was in discomfort. She had no translation software for alien emotions, but she read the signals through experience, the way she'd read infants in trauma wards, small cues, temperature shifts, reflexive gestures. It still couldn't stand without assistance, but it tried every few hours, dragging its weight forward using its uninjured limbs. Amelia set up padded rails around the med table to give it space to move safely. Each failed attempt left it panting, exhausted, but it never whimpered. It was stubborn, tenacious in its will to regain movement. She admired that. Underneath the alien biology was a universal instinct: to survive, to rise, to keep going. She caught herself talking to it more. Not idle chatter, but actual one-sided dialogue. She narrated her process aloud, explained what each tool did as she disinfected, stitched, or administered fluids. At first, it had been habit. Then she noticed the subtle changes. When she spoke softly, the light pulses slowed. When her tone shifted, more urgent, more focused, the colors sharpened. It wasn't just reacting to noise. It was learning from her rhythm. On the 5th morning, she opened the feed panel and found it upright. Barely balanced, bracing against the containment rail, but upright. She froze, not wanting to startle it. It turned, locked its deep, reflective eyes on her, and blinked, once slowly. Then it collapsed, weak but unhurt. A triumph. Data flowed to her pad. Cardiovascular output increasing. Neurological activity had nearly doubled. Some patterns resembled pre-speech development in human infants: repetition, mimicry, spatial awareness. This wasn't just recovery. It was adaptation. The AI remained unconvinced. Subject exhibits signs of accelerated neurological development inconsistent with passive recovery. Classification adjustment suggested: potential Class II sentient entity. Immediate escalation to xenobiological command required. She ignored it. Again. She wasn't naive. She knew keeping this creature undocumented placed her career, even her freedom, in jeopardy. But she wasn't driven by ego or some scientific obsession. She just couldn't bring herself to reduce it to a subject, when it clearly responded like a child. A wounded, intelligent child. The base medic, Torres, entered her workspace without knocking, saw the creature, and paused. "You're still treating that thing? It's stable. You're risking the entire station. If it's tagged as vector capable and something spreads, we're screwed. It's non-pathogenic. All scans are clear. You sure it's not a pet? Someone's unauthorized import? Too complex. Gene sequencing has pre-coded adaptive structures. That's not engineered. It's born." Torres scoffed but said nothing more. Word was getting around. She increased lab privacy protocols, wiped logs daily, and encrypted the AI's visual feeds. Her logs became clinical yet vague. Just enough data to explain her extended hours without raising red flags. The pup continued to gain strength. It started responding to physical cues, leaning toward the sound of her footsteps, raising its head when she approached with tools. It had also developed a low humming sound when asleep, rhythmic and steady, like a purring engine. One evening, while charting its metabolic fluxes, she felt a light pressure on her leg. The pup had limped off the table entirely, crawled to the floor, and pressed against her boot. She froze again. It didn't seem frightened. It simply wanted proximity. She scooped it up, gently, returned it to the heated mat. It didn't resist. Instead, it rested its narrow snout against her arm, eyes half-lidded. The gesture was unmistakable: trust. That night, sleep didn't come easily. She kept replaying moments in her head, its first vocal mimic, its blinking patterns, the warmth of its body when it leaned into her. There was nothing in the official manuals for this kind of connection. By the 7th day, the data was undeniable. Its recovery defied standard models. No species listed in galactic records had its regenerative or emotional response pattern. It remained unidentified, but Amelia had already accepted one truth. She wasn't just saving it. It was reaching back. The sky turned darker than weather patterns predicted. Amelia noticed it during an intake check, an unusual dimming of sunlight, not the soft shift of dusk but an unnatural shadow swallowing the clinic's outer walls. The AI flagged no storms. No seismic warnings. No orbital schedules. Then the signal came. A low, frequency-dampening hum, vibrating through the floor, followed by a cascade of encrypted pulses jamming the regional comms grid. The AI froze momentarily, rerouting systems to manual failsafe. Above the outpost, silence. Absolute and oppressive. She stepped outside, and saw it, enormous, black against the atmosphere, not sleek but jagged, like an obsidian scar stitched across the sky. No visible insignia. No light trails. Just mass. A starship, unmistakably alien. It moved with controlled menace, hovering just above the valley's ridge, blotting out the sun in a circular radius. No transmissions. No codes. No context. Back inside, the pup pressed itself into a corner. Its skin shifted erratically, red, green, violet, frantic pulses of instinctual panic. Amelia dropped to her knees and steadied it with both hands. "I've got you. You're safe. You hear me?" Its limbs trembled. Not from injury, but recognition. She understood then. The ship wasn't just a visitor. It was looking. The AI rebooted with partial external access. "Unidentified vessel has assumed low orbital positioning. No diplomatic clearance. Command link reestablishment pending. Advise immediate shelter in place." Amelia ignored it. She wrapped the pup securely in thermofoam and locked the medbay. Then she waited. It didn't take long. A surge of static cracked through the entry door interface. Then the lock disengaged. The clinic's inner lights blinked twice and steadied. A hiss. Then they entered, 3 beings, humanoid in silhouette but unmistakably alien. Their armor reflected no ambient light, matte black, textured like insect chitin. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath segmented visors. No weapons drawn, but every movement controlled, practiced. Military. They scanned the room without a word. One stepped forward, held up a narrow device, and emitted a sequence of tones. The pup whimpered in response, body dimming to a low gray hue. The lead figure turned to her. It spoke, not in any galactic trade tongue, but a sharp, crackling dialect she couldn't process. The AI couldn't translate it either. After a pause, it switched. "You have it. Return it." Her stance didn't change. "It's injured. It's under my care. Return it. It can't walk." Silence. Then the second figure stepped closer, reaching out. She moved between them and the pup, planting her boots, arms outstretched. "You're not touching it." They didn't react with hostility. Not yet. But they hesitated, clearly unprepared for resistance. "You don't get to walk into a clinic and demand a living being like cargo," she said, voice calm but steel-edged. "Explain what it is. What you are." The lead alien spoke again. "Irrelevant. Property of the Valari Dominion. Genetic priority asset. Protocol designation, Class 1 reclamation." She didn't move. Not anymore. A strange pause followed. The soldiers exchanged glances. One tapped a panel on its wrist, and suddenly the AI's interface filled with data, genetic schematics, neural map overlays, growth acceleration tables. None of it meant much to her, but the implication was clear. The pup wasn't just rare. It was engineered, or at least tracked. Highly. "Unauthorized retrieval is a violation of medical ethics law," she said evenly. "This facility is protected under interspecies humanitarian treaty code. You want it? You go through that process." The alien's visor tilted slightly. "You are a nurse." "That's right." "You are unarmed." "Correct." "You oppose us." "I'm not moving." The tension could have snapped with a breath. But they didn't force her aside. They stood there, processing her position like a tactical variable they hadn't accounted for. A faint pulse flickered from outside. Another ship. Amelia saw it through the clinic's side viewport, a sleek, iridescent craft descending silently through the cloud bank, more graceful than the first. The Valari turned sharply, weapons now materializing from their armor, aimed at the sky. She whispered to the pup, still cradled behind her. "Looks like someone else cares you're alive." No one fired. Yet. But the room was now a trigger away from chaos. She didn't move. She didn't run. Just stood there, between one fragile life and a galaxy too used to deciding the value of things by power alone. The second ship settled just beyond the ridge, casting a mirrored shimmer across the scorched terrain. Unlike the angular aggression of the Valari craft, this vessel moved like it belonged, fluid, silent, its surface bending light instead of consuming it. It released no weapons, no signals, only presence. A statement. Inside the clinic, the Valari units responded with precise formation. They rotated, flanking Amelia with smooth, mechanical coordination, weapons drawn and tracking the window. They no longer spoke to her. She was irrelevant again, momentarily replaced by a greater threat outside. She stayed still, eyes locked on the pup now pressed beneath the table, barely visible under the edge of thermal wrap. The front hatch of the new vessel opened slowly. From it emerged a single figure, taller than the Valari, wrapped in reactive plating that shifted color with each movement. It approached the outpost alone, unarmed, and unhurried. The air felt heavier with each step it took. The Valari's attention snapped to full alert. Then, something unexpected. The pup responded, not with fear this time, but stillness. Its glow changed, now a steady green fading into soft gold, pulsing slow and rhythmic. It recognized the presence. Not in the way it had feared the Valari, but with something quieter, older. The shimmer in its skin wasn't panic, it was resonance. Amelia watched it rise slowly, still limping, but now pulling forward as if drawn by instinct. She reached down to stop it, but paused. The pup paused beside her leg, looking up once. No fear. No confusion. Then it continued toward the entry. The Valari raised their weapons. Amelia stepped in their path instantly, arms wide again, voice sharper this time. "Move, and I swear, someone doesn't walk away." They hesitated, but didn't lower their aim. The lead unit emitted a sharp command. In response, the pup stopped again, but its glow spiked, brighter now, golden white surging through its limbs. Its body pulsed with light so intense it pushed shadows against the walls. The Valari staggered back, vision impaired, recalibrating. The pup didn't flinch. Then the tall figure entered the clinic. No barriers. No alarms. It simply walked through the doors, unmoved by protocol or warning. Its voice, when it came, bypassed sound entirely, resonating inside her mind, layered, vast, but not painful. "You have protected one of our kind." Amelia didn't respond immediately. Her heart pounded. She didn't know what this being was, but its presence filled the air like gravity. It looked at the Valari and said one word. Leave. The Valari didn't move. A pulse burst from the visitor's chest plate, silent but shattering. The lights in the clinic flickered. Glass cracked. The Valari's weapons dropped from their hands, disabled, lifeless. They didn't reach for backups. They simply stood, as if held in place by something far beyond force. Then the visitor turned to Amelia. You chose empathy. You defied order. You disrupted possession. I saved a life, she answered. That should be enough. It is. But in doing so, you changed balance. This life is not insignificant. The pup moved toward the visitor. The light between them synced instantly. The colors matched. Patterns aligned. She realized in that moment the truth: this wasn't a pet. It wasn't an experiment. It was a seed. A being of great potential, maybe even importance beyond her understanding. Something young, yes, but with weight, genetic, cultural, existential. You should know, the visitor continued, this species is born to bond. Early imprinting alters development. It will remember. I wasn't trying to shape it. I was just keeping it alive. That is why it remembers. Amelia looked down at the pup, now nestled beside the figure's leg, glowing steady, calm. She felt a hollow open in her chest, a quiet grief she hadn't anticipated. Saving it had mattered more than she could explain, and now that moment was ending. The Valari silently began to withdraw, their power eclipsed. The visitor hadn't threatened. It hadn't needed to. Presence alone dictated the outcome. Before turning to leave, the visitor paused once more. Your kind rarely risks without reason. Your choice was instinct, not gain. We see that. And we do not forget. Then, without ceremony, they departed, pup and guardian rising toward the stars, swallowed by silence and sky. Amelia stood alone in the doorway, breath shallow, hands still tingling from the energy that had passed through them. Nothing looked different. But everything had changed. The silence that followed was unnatural, like sound itself had withdrawn. Amelia returned to the clinic, now empty of life but full of memory. Her hands moved out of habit, cleaning instruments, sealing unused vials, organizing medical files that no longer felt important. Each item reminded her of the presence that had left, the connection that had taken shape without warning, then vanished without permission. Command restored partial contact by mid-morning. Automated drones arrived first, scanning for damage. No questions were asked about the event. No orders issued. Yet she knew they were watching. Her logs had been scrubbed, comms records blank. The visit had been witnessed, but carefully erased. Officially, nothing had happened. She filed her report without embellishment: an emergency containment drill, system malfunction, minimal incident. No mention of aliens. No record of the pup. No explanation for the altered energy signatures still lingering on every surface. What couldn't be erased was what had changed inside her. The experience had cut through every protocol she'd once trusted, revealing how little policy mattered when something truly unfamiliar arrived. Saving that pup hadn't been heroism. It had been human. Reflex. The kind of decision that defined identity without asking for permission first. In the following weeks, the clinic returned to routine. Fractures, infections, burns. Amelia performed with focus, even grace, but part of her remained elsewhere. She missed the small sounds, the glimmering skin, the quiet presence that had filled her workspace with urgency and meaning. Then, one night, a coded package appeared in her private terminal. No sender, no path traceable. Just data. She opened it slowly, pulse climbing. The file unfolded into a complex string of biofeedback signatures, patterns she recognized immediately. Heart rates, growth sequences, neural impulses, all matching the pup's unique physiological print. But it was older now. Stronger. Healing had not just continued, it had accelerated beyond natural pace. Embedded within the data were new pulses, rhythmic and sophisticated. It was learning language. She scrolled further. Images formed in spectrovisual renderings, a planet not marked on any chart, its skies layered in bioluminescent clouds. Structures curved and organic, built into the land rather than imposed upon it. A culture. A home. In one frame, just barely visible against a cliffside bloom, stood the pup, taller, sleeker, posture upright. It looked directly into the lens. Behind it stood the same guardian. The transmission ended with one line, not translated but understood instinctively, like breath. "We remember what you chose." Amelia leaned back, exhaling slow. It wasn't closure, but it was something real. She hadn't saved a stray. She'd changed a trajectory. Perhaps more than one. In the following days, she noticed small changes in herself. Her decisions sharpened. Her tolerance for bureaucratic delay vanished. She advocated harder for treatment overrides, refused to let triage protocols devalue the vulnerable. Her colleagues noticed. Some respected it. Some didn't. She didn't care. The line between patient and priority had shifted permanently. Later, a request came from planetary operations. A promotion. Supervisor level, central station post, higher pay, more status. She declined? Politely. Firmly. She didn't need a desk to matter. She needed proximity. She stayed in the field clinic, where life was unpredictable, messy, urgent. People came and went. Systems failed and rebooted. But every time she entered the exam chamber, she remembered that soft glow, the warmth against her hand, the way it had looked at her in silence and found safety. That memory guided her more than policy ever could. Months passed. No further messages. No contact. But late one night, while checking vitals on an unconscious patient, the outer sensor array flickered once. Only for a second. A barely perceptible anomaly, a frequency shift, harmonic but inaudible, identical to the pulse the pup had used when it slept. She smiled without looking up. It wasn't a goodbye. It wasn't surveillance. It was a reminder. A whisper between stars. That in one forgotten corner of the galaxy, someone remembered a nurse who didn't ask for permission to do the right thing.